Hi, welcome to AIGA Real Talk, where we dive into the conversation that move our industry forward. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lama Ajinah from AIGA board. Who is here and where are you joining us from? Please introduce yourself in the chat. This series was created because we believe the most powerful conversations happen when we are honest about our challenges and opportunities. Today, we'll do some real talk about designing on TikTok time, engaging Gen Z in a world of instant meaning. For the next 30 minutes, we'll explore how to inspire creative resilience in young designers who need more than obligation to engage. I've invited co host Ashley Taylor, AIGA Orlando VP. Hi, Ashley.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Orlando VP and Director of Mentorship to help us navigate the delicate balance between honoring healthy boundaries and building creative stamina. Drop your questions and comments in the chat. This is your conversation too. So let's see who's here.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Abdurrahman from Jeddah. Hello, Luan from New York. Hi, Victor.
We have a few from Orlando. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, so let's get started.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start by talking about bite-sized learning. As a professor who have long experience in teaching, what approaches have worked for you when breaking complex design challenges into smaller, more digestible pieces?
Yeah. So whenever we're giving a project out to a student, it can be really overwhelming. And I think even for me in general, when you're hearing the scope, you're hearing all the things, you're seeing what you need to do immediately, and then you're seeing what you need to do, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. So I think micro tasks are really vital for this current generation, especially. So I try to break it down, but the thing we do first is we start. Like I tell them to start somewhere. So we do sprints at our school. So in the ideation phase, we don't just say, hey, here's a project. All right, see you next week. Good luck. We try to walk them through that project immediately and their thinking right away. Because I can procrastinate too, and they'll probably procrastinate. But it's like, let's just start immediately. And I think the second thing that hits their mind is I've got no ideas or I'm struggling here. So something I've started kind of in the last year was let's make some bad ideas first. Let's get the let's do the worst ideas. Let's make the ugly stuff first because sometimes one, it gets them out of their head of I've got to make the most perfect thing ever. But then sometimes it leads actually to a really interesting idea that they weren't trying to go for. So we break it down and then we just celebrate the process too. We just celebrate like the early stages are terrifying, but also really exciting and we celebrate what we get to do. And yeah.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, like whenever I have a new project to my students, I kind of start with sometimes when the students are stuck, I start giving them a group brainstorming session. We write.
All right. Anyone in the chat have any other strategies too? So Crystal Hobson, I think brainstorming and thumbnails help so much. Do younger designers work on paper still like they did 20 years ago? Yes, we definitely encourage them to work on paper. It's so while there's such great tech out there, the easiest path from to creativity is through pen and paper and just getting all those ideas out. You're not restricted by technology at all. So yes, we do a lot of mind mapping. We have the typical post-it note sessions, anything to just remove any of that constraints in the early stages. I'm reading through the chats. Yes, Lama did cut out, so I'm going through, and if anyone has any questions in the early stages too. Oh, there you are. Welcome
Okay.
back.
Thanks. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I don't know
It's
if you heard
Friday.
my. Yeah.
You kind of cut out like pretty early.
Okay, so I was just saying, I start like by doing brainstorming, group brainstorming sessions with my students, so that
Mhm.
each student participate with their own idea, and as you said, they drop out all their silly, stupid ideas, and from there we can go and push the idea forward. And this is how we start actually, and we start by doing step by step to reach the end goal of the project.
Yeah, and you almost have to force it sometimes. Like you can tell them like you should do this, but I've just found that no, we're doing it. We're doing this now. You know, we're going to come who's our target audience right now? Let's figure it out. And then like we know we can fix that later, we can adjust, but I've discovered in my teaching that like we just need to start and I'll try to kind of craft some of the sprints to just be question and answer where they only have 2 to 3 minutes to answer and then we commit, and it just kind of limits, or excuse me, it opens up more opportunities for them when they're
Yeah,
working up on the project.
yeah. We have an interesting question here from Matt.
Mhm.
He's saying, how does ideation work, especially when the students have so much online noise that they can be influenced from?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people talk about the rise of certain technologies getting in the way, but I would argue that there's been these technologies that have been a lot of noise, and that's certain inspiration sites, certain, like social media has actually been, I think, the biggest thing rampant in our industry is figuring out who we need to find inspiration from. And I just gave my final lecture to the students last week about where to start finding inspiration, and that's limiting as much digital content. I showed them several examples in New York of responding to buildings, responding to typography, responding to sewer drains on the ground, or like a bus, like the lighting on the bus. And so it's just trying to teach them to open their eyes and be as curious as possible, and teaching them what curiosity is. I think this current generation doesn't always know that, and I sometimes don't know that either, but it's really just being open to interesting ways and the what if, right? I always say, like, what's the what if? What is your what if right now? Let's do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Also, like the internet and the noise that we have in today's life, like it's really affecting the topics that the students are bringing to the table.
Hmm.
Um, so the new trends, the new kind of, as I said, topics that are happening now, they bring new issues to discuss, like hot
Hmm.
topics to discuss at the moment. So this is also enriching to us as educators as well.
Yeah, it is. It really is. What do you've taught before too? Have you had any instruction for how to find inspiration to the students at all?
Well, to find inspiration for the students, I always advise them to start by research
Hmm.
and researching like anything that comes to their mind. Like it doesn't have to be from the internet. It can be from asking friends, doing surveys, interviews, asking the people involved in the topic.
Hmm.
And I think dealing with the people in context really gives them an insight, a deeper and more insightful insight about the topic that they are engaged in. And it makes the projects more solid and validating.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so we'll move to studio boundaries.
Hmm.
As a mentor, how are workplaces adapting to accommodate Gen Z's clearer boundaries around work life balance, in your opinion?
Mhm. I think this is a topic we're all figuring out right now, but I grew up in a time where if you work hard, you'll achieve all the things, right? And then we discovered that's not always the case, that we can work as hard as another person, and maybe that person gets the job, or just through luck, or through maybe it just being a better project. So the one thing I have learned from this current generation is a work-life balance. I think they have a way better work-life balance than I do. I kind of aspire to be them in some instances, where they can have a hard stop, or a hard, like, nope, I'm done. I don't have that. But what I am seeing in the space of AIG, I've talked to several people in the industry, and how they're doing that as maybe the team lead or the creative director. And one person from our area named Trinity, who is a creative director, she not only, of course, creates tasks for her team through a project management system, but she also balances those tasks with personal projects that they need to work on. Or the touch grass, like, okay, like, your new task is you need to touch grass for the next 2 hours, go outside. So she's worked in responsibilities on the job as also responsibilities in life, and I love that. And another thing I pulled was the 80-20 rule that she has also instilled in them. Was 80% of your job you're going to love, there's 20% that you're probably not going to love, and that's a good balance. That's what I aim for. It might not be your ratio, but and if there is something I don't want to do, I just throw it in that 20%, and I think of the 80% that I do love. But I think these industries are working, or excuse me, these teams are working in moments to make fun priorities, understand that creativity is not linear, that it can happen at any moment, that collaboration is going to be key in trying to be more clever in this day and age, and also then get those away from burnout too.
Yeah. I love this percentage that you said about 80-20%.
80-20,
Yeah, I think it's very real,
yeah.
because not all jobs, you will not like all of your jobs. You will find some areas that you will not like about it. It's about how to adapt, and how to look for the positive things about your job, and maybe from the things that you don't like, you will learn, and this is where the learning part happens.
Mm-hmm. And I think you discover too in the early stages, and when you get into your career, there's certain things you don't love, but then you become like you get better at them, and then you like them. And I think that's a separation too that our students have is, do you like it, or are you just not good at it yet, right? And I think
Exactly.
they can't distinguish that sometimes. Which is new with this generation, is like, I have to ask, like, is it just because you have this gap in front of you that you see where you want to be and you're not there, so you don't like it? Or, but then, I'll talk to them in a few years and they're like, oh no, I love this now, or I love using this. It's like, yeah, because you needed to practice, you needed to get better, you need to get more confident in using it. So that is definitely also
Yeah, I agree 100%. As you also said something very interesting about learning is becoming more of a non-linear way of learning things. So with the inclusion of technology and AI, I think we are constantly learning new stuff from different AI tools. And
Mhm.
this brings me to the last question that we have, which is technology integration.
Mhm.
In your opinion, how do you balance embracing new tools like AI while teaching critical thinking about their implications?
Yeah, they're tools. They're tools to help, like, maybe ideally remove some of the 20%, right? The stuff I don't want to do, right? Expedite that, but then also get me to think a little bit more creatively. So I encourage the use of it, as long as we are using it in like the ideation phase, to get better ideas. I like to create weird prompts for them, like, create a weird prompt, be a little weird with it, and like see what you get, and you never know. But it's hard. I'm fortunate enough that I grew up at a time where we didn't have it, where I learned the soft skills, the hard skills, the technical skills, the writing skills, that they're having to compete with access to this technology. and also learning these foundational principles at the same time. And so I'm still figuring it out too. How can we balance both? What does that look like? Because I want them to struggle. I want them to struggle a little bit with writing, because that's how you get better at something. So
Yeah.
it's showing them how to use stuff, but also finding ways to balance it. I don't yet have all the answers to it at all, but we do use it, because it's a tool necessary in this field. But I'm finding new strategies in which, okay, we have this generative thing, but how do we make sure it's authentic? How do we make sure it's coming from a good place, and that it's also coming from us and our vision? Because at the end of the day, it's a tool.
Yeah, yeah. This reminds me of an article that I read 2 days ago with from one of our board members in AIGA, Nicole. She said that with the integration of AI, our role as designers is not going to be diminished. On the contrary, it's going to be more of a curation kind of role, because we are going to be asked to select and arrange what kind of ideas, or using our critical thinking, what kind of ideas to use, what kind of ideas to eliminate. So with the vast amount of data that we have and the kind of ideation that we get from AI, I think it's important to know what to choose for the project that you are working on, and how to embed it in your work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And finding ways in which we go above AI a little bit and still bring that human quality to the human-centered design, and make sure it's for a good purpose and for our intended audience.
Yeah. Rama is asking an interesting question. How are you building brand memory when content is designed to disappear tomorrow?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yes.
Brand memory. So is that like the longevity of a particular brand? Um, so in the educational space, we're trying to teach timeless. Like, how do we make something feel timeless and honor its audience? And that's where we get away from trends. We caution against trends, as you were mentioning earlier. Like, that's good now, but later on, that could disappear in a few years, or or it could change, and all of a sudden we're missing the point of this particular brand. So it's a lot of research. It's a lot of understanding the target audience, the core audience, the tone of the company, and where that brand wants to be in 10 years. We always ask, like, where do they want to be in 10 years, 5 years from now, not just now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I also think uh, being aligned with the brand voice and brand character, without being always distracted by the new trends or the new topics. I think trends are important to engage audience, but not don't make them lead your
Mhm.
character as a brand.
Yes.
So you become more solid as a brand in your niche area.
Hmm. Yeah, and making the voice not generic either, like making it more specific, more niche, more creative, is also going to be important too.
True, true. Diana is asking another question. What has been the most effective way of finding projects that are more aligned with your goals?
So the one thing I did, and one thing I've done over the few years, is I've assigned a project called Expanse, in which the students have to do a few things. One, they have to meet like 6 people, and they have to form a group. So I have to assign them tasks that, like, go meet people, go form a group that you're going to have for the next 2 years in our program. Go to events, go to AIGA events. Like, this is all things that I'm requiring. But then the final thing they have to do is make a personal project. Create
Mhm.
a personal project, and you have to align it with something from your childhood that you loved, something that is connected to what you want to do in the future, and something that's deep inside, something you've been wanting to do for a while. So those 3 things has to drive their personal project. And so in that, they spend all semester working on their other projects, but this is like that project that feeds your soul, when maybe some of these other projects are just like, I can't come up with a good idea, or I need a break. Work on this. And this is hopefully instilling in them to work on the things that they want to do, and then finding a way for that to enter their portfolio, or maybe that opens up new opportunities. The projects this semester, we had a couple, one get published and as like a publishing illustrator, which was really cool. Like you can go on Amazon and buy it. I saw it's like, that's awesome. Or others where they're like, I've been wanting to do this for years and now I finally did it and I'm so glad I did it. I needed the push. So it's those creative projects, uh, making creative projects that align with what you want to do, and sometimes they open up opportunities that you never thought of.
Yeah, yeah. I also have a project for my students in my ethics course where I ask students to select a project that, as you mentioned, something that they really like and
Mm-hmm.
something that they are passionate about. And I think it's the same thing, but the other one is something that they are skilled at and,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
a need in society.
Mm-hmm.
So if they combine these three together, they will have a passion project for them to be tailored towards their goals or something that they will it will keep them engaged in that project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just instilling in them the always be a learner, right? That's one thing I do, is like, it's also must be something you want to learn or do too. So, or harness what you can do best too, like yours. Like, what can you do good? What can you do well? Excuse me. Um, do that thing. I love it.
Yeah. Crystal is asking an interesting question too. What about a group experiment where you have to complete a project without a computer, like hand letter forms, etc.? I think this relates to printmaking as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, this the first semester I had them, and I would love to do more. We watched this amazing documentary called Graphic Means, which was all designed before the computer. And so what I did was I printed out imagery and actual paragraphs of type, and they had to create a paste up in like an hour. And they actually really loved it. Like they were like, "Oh my god, that was so fun." I was like, I thought they were not gonna like it, but it just got them really thinking about all the minute details that we don't have to think about anymore with paragraph styles and stuff like this. It made them appreciate the older technology.
Yeah.
So a group experiment, but I haven't done it in group form though. So I think that's a good idea, is to bring in as groups, what can that look like off the computer? I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's very interesting that I have very similar projects to yours. I
Mm-hmm.
use it in book design
Oh,
course. Yeah, so I asked students to collect articles from magazines and images and to make a layout from that, and they really love this assignment.
yeah. No, it's true. They love the analog, I think, because they've grown up with so much access to the iPad or to the computer, that they forget that they can do so much off the screen,
Mhm.
which helps. I think last year we had so much kind of hand done stuff, torn paper, in our classes, that it was really exciting.
Mhm. Here's an interesting question from Courtney. How would you recommend approaching a team that doesn't understand the creative process?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think being open and honest about what the process looks like. I think showing insights, walking them through a design, the problem and the solution. If you have them for several hours, include them in on the process, ask them questions like, what are you thinking? Like, as maybe you do a little mini sprint and you say, hey, like, help design with us, and then have them input ideas. And then if you can counter with the why, I think bring in the why. I think that might be a neat, but I think we're sometimes opaque in our process. And I think opening others to see that process, they'll realize, oh, that's why you're charging me so much, because this is not just instantly going into the computer. There's so much before. I mean, half of the process is even before you get to the computer.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it might look like a negative point, but I think it's actually positive when someone doesn't understand the creative process because it somehow makes us more question our creative process. So when we ask them to give us ideas of different methods to tackle that topic, or that issue from their point of view, I think this brings new ideas and new research methods to the project that we are working in. So I
Hmm.
think it's also not knowing also give us an insight of how to tackle old problems with new methods.
Hmm. No, absolutely. And tying it back to our, Generation Z is connecting projects to them personally too is vital. So if you have a client, empathizing with that client, I always say, like, who's the client, who's the audience we're designing for, who in your, like, bubble of people would be one of those audience members, like, who would that be? Would that be your mom? Would that be your dad? Would that be your grandma, grandpa? Would it be you? And then, like, it also helps them enter that space and be more empathetic too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's our session. Thank you, Ashley, so much for joining us.
That was fun. Thank
Um,
you for having me.
Of course, and to you all who participated with your questions and feedback. Don't forget, AIGA is a non-profit membership organization dedicated to supporting designers and creative communities. Memberships help us invest in your career, the design profession, a nationwide network of creatives and programs like these. Check us out at aiga.org. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on LinkedIn and tag AIGA if something in today's talk sparks a post, a conversation, or a shift in your work. We'll be doing this again on May 16th. So check the AIGA Design LinkedIn page to RSVP for the next one. Again, I'm Lama Ajinah and see you at the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.